There is a tree that scientists have called the most nutritionally complete plant ever documented on Earth. A single tree, one species, and it can feed you, survive without rain for months, and purify contaminated water using nothing but its own seeds. You have almost certainly never heard of it, not because it doesn't exist, not because the science is unclear, but because the modern food industry had no use for something it couldn't put on a truck, ship across 3 time zones, and sell at a markup. This is the story of Moringa oleifera, and once you understand what was done to it and why, you will never look at a supermarket produce aisle the same way again. For thousands of years, across the dry plains of northern India, the drought-stricken villages of sub-Saharan Africa, and the rural communities of Southeast Asia, one tree stood at the edge of the field and quietly did everything. The locals called it the drumstick tree. Some called it the horseradish tree. Scientists who studied it in the 20th century ran out of superlatives. Gram for gram, the leaves of this tree contain 7 times the vitamin C found in oranges, 4 times the calcium in milk, 4 times the vitamin A in carrots, 3 times the potassium in bananas. And in a world where hundreds of millions of people suffer from protein deficiency, Moringa delivers all 9 essential amino acids, making it one of the only plants on Earth that qualifies as a complete protein source. Not a supplement, not an extract, a tree, growing quietly in the dirt, available to anyone with a seed and a patch of soil. So why, when you walk into any garden center in the world, is it nowhere to be found? Here is what nobody tells you when they talk about the global food system. The plants that conquered the world market were not chosen because they were the most nutritious, or the most resilient, or the most useful to human beings. They were chosen because they were the most manageable, the most transportable, the most profitable at scale. Think about the modern supermarket tomato. It was not bred for flavor. It was not bred for nutrition. It was bred to survive a 3,000-mile journey in a refrigerated container without bruising. We optimized the tomato for logistics, and in doing so, we bred out almost everything that made it worth eating in the first place. This is not a conspiracy. It is something quieter and more disturbing than that. It is the invisible hand of a system that rewards what ships well, not what nourishes well. And Moringa failed that test completely. The leaves are extraordinarily fragile once harvested. Within hours of picking, they begin to degrade. You cannot put them in a plastic clamshell, seal them with a marketing sticker, and ship them from one continent to another. The cold chain cannot save them. The packaging cannot preserve them. So the industry did not ban Moringa, it simply ignored it. And in a world where visibility is survival, being ignored is as effective as being erased. There is a concept in historical scholarship called the winner's history problem. The idea is simple. The version of history we inherit is always written by whoever won. The other stories, the other paths, the other possibilities, they get buried under the weight of what actually happened. Agriculture has its own version of this problem. The plants that dominate our food system today are not the culmination of thousands of years of human wisdom about nutrition. They are the survivors of a brutal selection process, driven entirely by commercial logistics. The plants that could be scaled, standardized, packaged, and shipped became the global food supply. Everything else was quietly set aside. Moringa is what was set aside. The biology of this tree is almost offensive in how well designed it is. Botanists classify it as a pioneer species, meaning it evolved specifically to grow in hostile, degraded, ruined environments where nothing else can survive. Its taproot drives straight down into the earth, reaching water tables that conventional crops could never access. Its cellular structure minimizes water loss while maintaining photosynthesis, even under extreme heat and direct sun. When temperatures spike and rainfall stops, Moringa does not wither. It accelerates. It pushes out more leaves. It doubles down. It was built for exactly the kind of world we are increasingly living in. And here is where the science becomes genuinely difficult to sit with. Moringa can be grown as an annual in almost any climate. It grows so rapidly, often reaching 10 to 15 feet in a single season from seed, that gardeners in cold climates can treat it exactly like a tomato plant. Start seeds indoors before the last frost. Transplant into full sun when the soil warms. Harvest continuously through summer until the cold returns. In zones 9 through 11, it lives as a true perennial. Plant it once and step back. The management technique used by traditional growers is called coppicing. When the tree reaches roughly 4 feet tall, you cut the main trunk in half. It sounds violent. It feels wrong after weeks of nurturing a seedling. But Moringa is built for exactly this. It responds to aggressive pruning by pushing out lateral branches in every direction, becoming a dense, productive bush rather than a single upward stalk. The harvest surface multiplies, the leaves stay within reach, and the plant becomes exponentially more productive than it would have been left alone. This is knowledge that traditional farmers carried for centuries. It was never patented. It was never sold. And so, by the logic of our current system, it was treated as if it barely existed. But the leaves are not even the most extraordinary thing about this tree, not by a significant margin. When a mature moringa tree produces its long, ribbed seed pods, the drumsticks the tree is named for, and those pods are left to dry, what emerges inside is something that researchers spent years trying to understand fully. Moringa seeds, when crushed into a powder and introduced into turbid, bacteria-laden water, trigger a process that should not work as well as it does. The seed powder contains naturally occurring proteins with a strong positive charge. These proteins act as a coagulant. They bind to suspended particles in the water, the dirt, the organic matter, the bacteria, and cause them to clump into heavy masses that sink to the bottom of the container. Within an hour, visually murky brown water becomes clear. Studies from agricultural universities and environmental science organizations have confirmed that crushed moringa seeds can eliminate between 90 and 99% of bacteria from untreated water. Not through chemicals, not through technology, through biology. Through a mechanism the tree developed over millions of years of evolution in places where clean water was never guaranteed. One tree, it feeds you complete protein and dense micronutrients. It thrives where other plants die. And it purifies your drinking water using seeds you can grow yourself for free in your backyard. Now sit with that for a moment. Because we have entire industries built around chemical water purification. We have a global agricultural complex that depends on synthetic fertilizers and pesticides to keep nutritionally inferior crops alive in conditions they were never designed for. And sitting in the historical record, in the traditional knowledge of millions of people across 3 continents, is a biological system that does the work of entire industries for nothing. The anger, when it arrives, is not dramatic. It is quiet, and it is the kind of anger that does not go away. Understanding what happened to moringa forces a harder question. What else have we lost? If a tree with this profile, complete protein, drought resistance, water purification, available to any climate, requiring nothing but a seed and sunlight, was allowed to fade into the background of mainstream agriculture, what does that tell us about the reliability of our food system as a source of nutritional wisdom? The answer is uncomfortable. The food system was never designed to maximize human nutrition. It was designed to maximize throughput, shelf life, and profit margin. And those goals are not just different from nutritional optimization, they are frequently in direct opposition to it. There is also a practical dimension to this that matters deeply right now. Climate patterns are shifting. Drought is expanding. The agricultural systems that depend on stable rainfall, moderate temperatures, and cheap synthetic inputs are becoming visibly fragile. Moringa, the pioneer species, the plant built for hostile environments, becomes more relevant every single year that the weather becomes less predictable. Traditional cultures did not discover moringa by accident. They observed their environments carefully over long periods of time. They found the plants that wanted to live, and they built their food systems around those plants, rather than spending enormous resources forcing delicate crops to survive in conditions that never suited them. We built the opposite system, and we called it progress. There is one final thing worth knowing, because it closes the loop completely. If you grow moringa and want to preserve what it contains, you cannot simply cook the leaves or dry them in sunlight. Boiling degrades the vitamin C and destroys delicate enzymes. Drying in direct sun strips the vitamin A and degrades the beta-carotene in a matter of hours. The leaves turn pale and yellow. What you are left with is nutritionally hollow plant matter. The correct method, the one traditional growers have used for generations, is shade drying. You harvest the branches, bundle them, and hang them in a warm, dark, well-ventilated space. A garage, a basement, anywhere with airflow but no direct light. Within days, the leaves crisp and dry, while remaining a deep, vibrant green. You strip them from the stems, crush them into a fine powder, and seal them in a jar. That powder is shelf-stable for months. A spoonful added to soup or oatmeal in the depth of winter delivers a concentrated hit of summer nutrition long after the garden has gone to sleep. The entire industrial market for expensive imported green powders exists in large part because this knowledge never made it into mainstream circulation. We do not lack solutions. We lack the circulation of solutions that do not require someone to profit from them. That is the honest conclusion this story arrives at. Not that the food industry is evil, not that everything is lost, but that the architecture of our food system has a systematic blind spot for anything it cannot monetize cleanly. And in that blind spot, quietly and without complaint, some of the most powerful biological systems on the planet have been waiting. Moringa is one of them. There are others. The question worth sitting with is this: what does it mean to build a garden, a diet, or a food system around the plants that were designed to thrive, rather than the ones we have been conditioned to buy? If this shifted something in how you think about what we grow and why, that is exactly why this channel exists. Not to give you a list of things to plant, but to give you a way of seeing the food system that most people never question. Subscribe if you want more of this. The history of what we chose not to grow is longer than most people realize, and we are only just getting started. Before I go, where are you watching this from? Drop your location in the comments. Because moringa grows differently depending on where you are in the world, and I want to know what your climate looks like. Whether you are in Lagos or London, Houston or Hyderabad, tell me where you are. Let us figure this out together.